What's going on, NBA 2K fans? This is Pete Toll, aka PT Sports 84, back with another NBA 2K25 video. In today's video, I'm taking a community request. I've had multiple people ask me when this video is coming, so due to family engagements and just not feeling great, still a little bit under the weather, so excuse my nasally voice today, but wanted to dive into the draft classes for NBA 2K25. Just kind of, hone in on some of the changes, some of the stuff that needs to be updated as well for the classes. I'm not going to go through every class. I'm just going to highlight a lot of the additions and what's left to be desired for some of the classes. So let's jump into it. Historic draft classes. Just right off the bat, the 60, 65, and 69 draft classes, not very much updated at all from last year. Same goes for pretty much everything up until the 1981 draft. There's still a lot of missing players that are available elsewhere. If you look at, I'm going to highlight a few of the players here. Like, there's one discrepancy, like he's in the draft class, but let's look at him really quick. We have George Johnson. This is actually the George Johnson that should be the Atlanta Hawks George Johnson. This is actually the cyberface here is the Indiana Pacers George Johnson. The George Johnson for the Atlanta Hawks, if I'm not mistaken, right off the top of my head, actually has a render as well. And then he went to Dillard College. So that info is wrong as well. 2K just has not updated it since last year. I've had it on the feedback list for over 1 year. Still left to be desired, I guess. That's the highlight for the 70 draft. Like I said, there's a lot of missing guys throughout that they could use that are My Team exclusive. I have yet to dive into the My Team exclusive guys for the fact that most of the My Team guys that are exclusive, outside of like Connie Hawkins, Tom Meshery, like guys like that, they are generic caps, meaning they have their real info, but their faces are generic caps. So they're not like lookalikes or anything like that. You got like Marcus Hayslip that should be in the draft classes. It's missing. He's also missing in the Kobe era on the Bucks. Like just examples like that. So there's guys like that that are missing that you could spend 2 hours looking up and making a list of. But I'll be completely honest, the draft classes aren't really a focal point past the first week or two, in my opinion, because they very rarely get updated. That's unfortunate for everybody, including myself. But with so many great community creators out there, we have the ability to fill in the draft classes better than 2K can in most cases with guys, because they don't have the rights to their likeness, licensing rights, of course. So we don't get those players. Now, the players that are in the game, we can just export them out, use their faces, build the draft class that way. It takes a little bit longer, but at least we know the ratings and tendencies would be corrected in that case. Now, let's move on. I'm going to go to the historic draft classes again. Again, these are the official 2K draft classes. The 1974 draft. This one's interesting, and it has a lot of good guys. Obviously George Gervin, Bill Walton, Bobby Jones, Hershey Hawkins. You have a lot of guys in here. Who is missing that are key guys? John Drew, obviously of the Atlanta Hawks and the Utah Jazz, multi-time All-Star. Billy Knight of the Indiana Pacers. Tom McMillan, who's available in the Bird Magic era. Eric Money, who is one of the My Team exclusive guys. He is missing from the draft class. And then Foots Walker, who is also available in the Bird Magic era. So now you can kind of see what I mean. They're missing some key guys that they do have the rights to. that they could throw into the draft class. Let's head over to the 76 draft. It's weird that they skip the 75 draft and then go to 76. I wish they would fill in these draft classes like 71, 72, 73, and just kind of keep it on down the line. But I guess they just don't have enough players to make it worthwhile. But if you look at some of the draft classes, some of them they only have 6 or 7 players and they fill them in anyway. So it doesn't really matter in that case, in my opinion. But let's look at the 76 draft as well. You've got some key guys in here, obviously Dennis Johnson, Alice English, Robert Parrish, and Adrian Dantley. But then it gets really thin. Mike Dunleavy's thrown in there right here. They are missing John Lucas, which obviously anybody that knows John Lucas, renowned NBA coach, player for the Rockets and some other teams. Wally Walker in the Bird Magic era, and all these guys are in the Bird Magic era. So it's kind of, in my opinion, unacceptable that these guys are not in the draft class. It's a simple, easy fix. Armand Hill is out. He has a face in there. Johnny Davis, Mitch Kupchak, the famed Lakers and Hornets executive, and then Major Jones as well. So we're missing key guys throughout 77 draft. I'm going to highlight that just because there is extensive lists of players that are missing throughout. 77 has a lot of missing players. I mean, a lot. It's crazy that 2K won't update these. All from the Bird Magic era: Kent Benson, Kenny Carr, Mike Glenn, Cedric Maxwell, Eric Grunfeld, Ben Paquette, Eddie Jordan, Robert Reed, T.R. Dunn, Mike Bratz, Steve Hayes, Billy McKinney, Alvin Scott, and Ricky Green are all from this draft class, and they're all missing. There's no excuse that they should be missing. Simple, easy fix that 2K could add in, and they don't. 78, thinner list, but still missing some guys. John Long, Mark Ivoroni, and Jeff Cook. Of course, you got Larry Bird in there, who's the highlight of the draft. Michael Thompson, guys like that. Throughout, like, there's other guys in here sprinkled in. What I wish 2K would do, and it's on my feedback list to give for next year, for the guys that are generic, lower their attributes down into the 60s and keep the real players in the 70s and above. That way we don't have to go through this long list and figure out who is in and who is not. And then last but not least, as far as actually, I got 2 more lists. 79, obviously the famed Magic Johnson draft. We've got some key guys missing here. Calvin Natt is missing. Cliff Robinson, Phil Hubbard, Jim Spinarkle, Calvin Garrett, Jeff Houston, Earl Curriton, Alan Level, and Dave Greenwood are all missing from the draft class. That would fill that draft class in. Then 1980, we are missing Mike Gaminsky, Mike O'Caron, Wes Matthews, Ricky Brown, Reggie Johnson, Jeff Ruland, Mike Woodson, Kurt Nymphius, Butch Carter, Roy Sparrow, and Joe Barry Carroll. Those guys are all missing. And it's a simple, easy fix. Like, 2K already has them elsewhere in the game. They're all in the Bird Magic era. It seems like the Bird Magic era and the Jordan era are the most neglected era across the board. Maybe it's knowledge base. Maybe it's just they just didn't have time to do it. Whatever the case is. Now we dive into the meat and potatoes of the draft, because this is where 2K tried to put effort in past the 81 draft, because they were getting closer to that famed 84 draft. 81 is the last draft in which they're missing a large amount of players. The 81 draft is missing a ton of players. In this one, Albert King, Mike McGee, Jeff Lamp, Eddie Johnson, Gene Banks, Franklin Edwards, Darnell Valentine, Danny Shays, Kenny Denard, Elston Turner, Rudy Macklin, Kevin McKenna, Larry Spriggs, Pete Verhoeven, Hank McDowell. They're all missing from this draft class. You do get Isaiah Thomas, you get Rolando Blackman, Mark Aguirre, Tom Chambers. But at the end of the day, you're still missing a dozen players in that draft. Okay, now 2K started to put some effort in with the 82 draft. They're still missing some guys. Two main guys out of this one that they're missing, Trent Tucker and Walker Russell. They have faces for them both. So there's really no excuse on why they would be missing them. I don't get it. I don't understand how these get missed despite being on feedback lists for a while. They did great with the 83-84 draft. Like all the guys that they could get in, they got in. Tom Petrosky, like everybody that they could get in for 83 onward that they have faces for, they really did a good job in the overall, look of things. Like they really put effort in. Like you got Leo Routens added in throughout. So they did good. Like I said, I'm not going to dive into every single player in every single draft. I just wanted to kind of let everybody know who was kind of missing more so than necessarily every single person that's in and out. I'll highlight some players that aren't represented elsewhere throughout these. So I did want to do that, but I'm not going to sit there and go through every name. You guys can dive in and look. I also have sheets up on my Twitter/X page. They're in the pinned tweet. They show the draft classes and stuff like that. I'm still in the process of updating them completely, just based off of the feedback list and things like that. But they are there. The 86 draft, they're missing Cedric Henderson Sr. Oddly enough, Cedric Henderson Sr. is still in, but they took out Gerald Henderson Jr. I guess they lost his likeness rights. I don't know who the hell thought that this Mark Price is Mark Price. Like, this is a bad render. This is one of the worst renders I've ever seen in 2K, honestly. I don't know who on the art team approved this one. That is not Mark Price in no way, shape, or form. The Mark Price they had in previous was just fine. There's no reason why they updated Mark Price a couple years ago and it looks that bad still. It just shows that they don't care about retro players. Honestly, that's what it says. You could say that's negative. Oh, you're bashing 2K. Well, then that's what it is. Because if you approve that version of Mark Price and said that's okay, then something is wrong with either your attention to detail or you just don't care. You're just like, hey, we got him off the list. We're good. Like, that's exactly what it tells me. If you put that much effort into everybody else and then you let one of the bigger players of this draft class slip through and Mark Price and you say that's what he looks like, that is a horrible, horrible representation of your art department. Honestly. Dave Hoppin is also missing out of that draft class. All right, let's dive into some errors real quick. So, missing in this draft class is Tim Legler. Everybody knows Tim Legler. Probably most people know Tim Legler for his analyst role with ESPN, probably more so than when he actually played. He did win the three-point contest. They have Tim Legler in, but let me show you what they did. And they did this for a couple players. Tim Legler went undrafted in the 1988 draft. They decided to put Tim Legler in the 1990 draft because he played in the 90-91 season. So they represented his first season in the NBA by putting him into this draft class, even though it is incorrect. Because you could have left him undrafted from 88. He did play overseas, or played in the CBA, I believe. And you could have him represented there. They decided not to. I don't know what went into the decision making for that, other than maybe they just didn't want him sitting there until the 92, 93, 90, 91, 92 season, whatever it is. Like, I don't know. I don't really know what reasoning you would have to put him in the wrong draft class unless you just didn't do your research. Skipping ahead here, let's go to the 96 draft. They're missing Fame draft, obviously, for a number of reasons, but they're missing Rusty LaRue in this draft. Rusty LaRue is in 2K. Rusty LaRue is correctly put in to the 97 draft. He was undrafted in 1996. And they decided to put him in there. I don't get it. We do get Rick Brunson, obviously, anybody that's seen Brunson there. Penn Berthy. We have some new renders, of course. I'll highlight some of those. Another one in this draft. Incorrectly placed. Eddie Robinson is incorrectly placed in this draft class. He's supposed to be in the 1999 draft, and he somehow gets put in the 97 draft. I don't get it, personally. It just shows a lack of attention. I don't know. I don't get it. We do. So they also put Brad Miller in the wrong draft. So again, it just shows a lack of detail. Like, I don't understand like how some of these get put in like that. Like, Brad Miller's in the 98 draft, not the 97 draft. It's not difficult to know which draft somebody's going in. You can look it up on Basketball Reference. You can look it up on Wikipedia. It tells you what draft class they want to draft it in. Another one. In the 2000 draft, we're supposed to have Igor Rakocevic. They did good. They got Khalid El-Amin. You got some guys in there. Pepe Sanchez is not a shooting guard. I don't know who thought that he was a shooting guard. Again, no research. We get an updated Jerome Moiso. Mamadou Ndiaye or Njai. I always forget how to say his name. We get Rakocevic, but they decided we go back to that 98 draft. There's Rakocevic. He should be in the 2000 draft. Again, everything's been on the feedback list for 2K to update. I just don't get it. Let's see. So we get to the 2005 draft. You get Devin Green. That should be in here. Former Lakers player. Didn't play very long. He should be here. Instead, he's in the 2006 NBA draft. Just a lot of missed opportunity to really flesh out these draft classes. Obviously, people could say, well, this is just minor things, and why are you nitpicking about it? Well, because it's attention to detail. Devin Green has a face in the game, and Devin Green played in the 05-06 season. So how would he be in the 2006 draft class if he played in 2005-2006? That's what I don't understand. Like, just pay attention to the draft. Like, look up your research. It's not difficult. All right, we got a couple guys missing throughout, just scattered. Not really going to highlight them very much. It's just a shame, like, that we're missing so many different players that we would have in the early drafts, and then they did good on the rest of the drafts. Everybody that you would want outside of a couple guys that should be in the game, that are in the files: Danny Fortson, Lazar Hayward. I'm blanking on other names, but basically those guys should be in the draft classes. They're not, because they're not in the game correctly. They eventually, hopefully, will be in the draft classes as well as in the game. If you noticed, like, there's guys that are missing that are in the game as well. For some of the newer draft classes, like Sharif Cooper's not represented in here, but that's because Sharif Cooper signed late in the season and they never added him. He signed a 10-day contract with the Cavs last year. They never added him in the game, and then they took his face out of the game because they thought he wasn't going to be in 2K24, which made him ineligible for this year, and so they took him out of the game, or out of the files, I should say. They can add him back easily, but they just have not done so overall. All right, so that's kind of the draft classes of who's missing. I'm not going to dive into who is in and all this stuff. I'll be here for 4 hours. You can ask me and I'll let you know if you really want to know who's in. I want to use this portion to highlight a couple of creators that I think do a really, really good job with the historic draft classes. I'm not talking about the 2025 and onward draft, because my two choices for those are Jack Move. Does a phenomenal job year after year. I highly support him every year. And then Joda Kelmer, I use a mixture of his stuff along with Jack Move. Those two guys are my draft class choices for current draft classes. The historic draft classes, I always try to look at. We have one returning guy who I 1000% get behind and support. XB Clutch, phenomenal roster maker with caps, phenomenal just with faces. So his draft class I highlight, and then let me see if I can find him. Let's see. Another one is another good one. Obviously, I support Richie 2K. Richie 2K has gotten more into the draft classes this year. I support Richie 2K if you want realistic faces, as far as all kinds of different players from all different genres. Go to Ricky 2K's YouTube page, subscribe. You won't regret it. He always does phenomenal work. Richie put out a bunch of different modes last year as draft classes. You were able to find the faces a lot easier that way than trying to search one specific roster versus the other. So make sure you're downloading his stuff as well. Richie, I haven't taken a look at your faces for the 2025 draft, so I apologize that I can't highlight it yet in this video, but I'm quite sure if it's just like all of your other stuff, it's going to be top notch. So I'm going to go ahead and say, throw in Richie 2K's draft class for 2025 as well into the ring. But looking at specific historic draft classes, I'm trying to find the creator's name. Once I see it, I'll be able to highlight it. There he is. His name is Bork, Bork. You'll see where it's like 2007 draft full, 2006, 2004. Let's see what he has here. So he has a bunch of different draft classes, as you can see here. Does great work as well. My personal preference is I go with who has the best face, and then I tweak the ratings and tendencies based on what I need from there, whether it's draft classes or I extract the players out to use in my rosters and things like that. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, highlighting the historic draft classes, highlighting some content creators that I like to back and that I recommend for the community. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up, like the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel as well. Stay tuned. I have a new video highlighting some new additions to my eras rosters, specifically the Steph era. You'll see that pop up on the timeline in just a few minutes. And hope everybody has a great rest of your week and take care.